Joining us to give a review and, more importantly, a where to from here analysis is Professor Shawn Easley from Cleveland, Ohio, and he joins us now. Shawn, lovely to have you back again. Mate, we just thought it was the best black comedy we've seen in a long time. What was the response of the people that you were watching it with?
Hey, Michael, great to be with you again. Shock, horror, despondence, the world is coming to an end, Armageddon, So basically, the polar opposite
you're just a bit disappointed then?
A polar opposite of all the world leaders that you just talked about. And I have to say, I think it's great. It's great that you brought them up because there's been a conspicuous paucity in the discussion going on in the United States about how it's been perceived in the rest of the world. And I think you're spot on. If I were Vladimir Putin, I couldn't have written a better script for Mr. Biden to read from if he had a teleprompter, which, of course, he didn't. And it was really quite something.
Tell me, Shawn, you sat down and watched this with who and whom?
Just my wife and I.
Okay.
I'm not a big party goer, so it was just the two of us.
But was it normal for Democrats and Republicans to congregate? It was portrayed to us here in New Zealand that there were sort of groups of all the activists who were getting together and giving themselves a bit of a hug, and off they go and watch the debate as some form of entertainment and sort of root for their man. And pretty much we get the impression over here that they might go and root for their favourite, basketball or football team.
Yeah, they absolutely do that. They're called watch parties specifically, and I think I've been to one like 25 years ago or something when Bill Clinton was running. There was a bunch of grad students, and I got together and did that once. But I've never been one to really join in the big group activities. And I like to try to take notes and kind of have it more of a somber affair. So I didn't go to one. Just my wife and I.
Okay, so there you are. You're watching it. From the very first moment, in an almost stuttering step, that President Joe Biden walks on to the stage, did you think, or I'm used to seeing him do the stutter step to get to the podium?
Sure. His presentation of self coming out from behind the curtain was certainly haunting. One of my colleagues at school called it a combination of Weekend at Bernie's meets Pinocchio, which, if you know the cultural references, was pretty outstanding. I thought. Yeah. He looked pasty and troubled. It was quite shocking.
And then, of course, when he's sort of a quarter of an hour into it, and by this time he's just looking weak, and then he just suddenly forgets where he is. At that stage, which I think was about 15, 16 minutes into the debate, you would have talked to a lot of your friends and colleagues who are Democrats since. At that point, what were they thinking apart from, oh my God?
Yeah, my phone was already blowing up at that point. They say that debates are won in the first 30 minutes, and there's no question that the first 30 minutes of this debate were the weakest 30 minutes, really catastrophic for President Biden. So if, that is true and everyone either tuned out or was so stunned and jolted by that, there wasn't a whole lot else that could happen afterward that would have made much of a difference. And so, my phone was already blowing up. Everybody was, like I said, absolutely losing their minds with grief. Again, except for the Putins and the Kim Jong-uns and the President Xi's, which was clearly something celebratory for them.
Can I just say, none of this was a surprise to us in New Zealand, Shawn. We talked about it last week here. We watch from New Zealand. We're a long way from you guys. But we see and observe and have observed Joe Biden for a while now. And I don't know that there'd be any New Zealander who thinks that Joe Biden's onto it. We all thought he was too old, too frail. And that's why I said to you last week, I can't believe that they're actually even having a debate. This is stunning to us. Surely there's something wrong with Democrats if they thought that this was a good idea.
Yeah, for a couple of cycles, it seems like the Republicans were the one that were kind of you've earned the right, it's your turn kind of party. We had the succession of various Republican leaders that had come up through the ranks, and it's like, okay, Bob Dole and John McCain and Mr. Bush, obviously senior. There was this kind of notion that they always deferred to whomever had paid their dues. And that was with the explanation about how Republicans had ended up with a series of nominees that they had over the course of the last several generations cycles. And Democrats not so much, but I think Mr. Biden kind of somehow or another represents some movement in the Democratic side of some sense of that he probably in all rights should have and could have got the nomination in 2016. And that Obama somewhat, favored Mrs. Clinton, and he had just, of course, suffered the unimaginable loss of his son, and there were, a lot of things that kind of aligned against him. But then when his turn finally came up, and in fact, of course, he was way behind in the primaries in 2020. He had finished fifth in Iowa, and I think fourth or so in New Hampshire, which is generally you're written off if you don't finish first or second in those early primary states. But somehow or another, he came back with the help of the Congressman James Clyburn, in South Carolina, and got the nomination, again, virtually uncontested in 2024. So there may be some of that kind of fealty and loyalty to the establishment that just seems to have permeated the party, and this may be their comeuppance as a result of it.
Yeah, and that's okay. We just don't understand from this angle, and it doesn't matter if you're on left or the right of politics in this country. It just seems odd. I guess we wouldn't choose 81-year-olds to lead us, or even think that they could get to 85 and not be in some way cognitively impaired. The other thing, though, is the reaction that's been fascinating to us over here. So, Shawn, I'd be interested in, obviously, your insight, and that is, it seems now that the Democrats have split themselves into two factions. Those who are rallying behind Joe Biden and saying, nope, he's our man and he's our best chance to protect us from the evil that is Donald Trump. And I mean, they believe that, the evil that is Donald Trump. And then there are those who say, for God's sake, he can't win. Switch him out now. Change. Shawn, who's going to win?
Well, right now it appears Mr. Biden's supporters are winning.
Right.
And I think it's particularly propitious that it happened, that the debate happened on a Thursday evening, and Friday was kind of a national day of shell shock and recriminations, and like you said, kind of the aggregations of groups. And immediately he lost the mainstream media, virtually editorially across the board. Everybody said he's got to go. Including, of course, the New York Times and several of its most important columnists. And that was kind of the buzz going on. But the rank and file leadership of the Democratic Party stuck with him. It's lasted over the last 2 days. I've been watching it, as I'm sure everyone has been, quite closely. This morning, the Sunday shows, all of the, kind of leaders in the public or the Democratic Party have been supporting him. I haven't seen any public defection from a major Democratic person, elected official. And so I think if he survives the weekend, which it really looks like he's going to do because it's now Sunday evening here, then he'll actually survive this. And then doubling down on that, we've been watching the polls, and lo and behold, just like getting 34 felony convictions didn't move the Republicans. A performance like Mr. Biden's from the other night didn't seem to have much effect on people defecting in mass, which again, I'm guilty of expecting them to do, as we talked on just before the debate. I thought there would be this mass movement if he blew it, and he clearly blew it, and that just hasn't happened. And if I can, I just go on one more kind of observation. I watched the debate again on YouTube, afterward, Saturday morning, actually, our time, because to me it was kind of interesting to see it in real time not in real time with, kind of a known conclusion, kind of like watching a match where you already know where the final score is. And so instead of watching it to kind of sit on that precipice of, oh my God, what's going to happen, you can just watch it and say, well, let's see the performance. Let's see the athleticism. Let's watch the coaching staff interact and all that. And so when I watched it on Saturday, I noticed that, or I observed and concluded that it was very different than my experience on Thursday night, and that Mr. Biden actually did kind of redeem himself in the second half of the debate, and he was much more cogent and made some good points. And as he increasingly did that, Mr. Trump kind of doubled down on his hyperbole and prevarication. And so there was somewhat of a symmetry that was achieved, but it certainly didn't feel that way in the moment. It only felt that way watching it a second time.